Hello, 2360 students. I hope everyone has had a great last couple weeks. I know that we had a lot we covered. I did a parts one and two an overview video for the inclusive fieldwork, which I've been getting a lot of questions regarding liability insurance and those sorts of things. So I'm going to be submitting this week as well another video to kind of walk through the rest of the parts of the fieldwork assignment and then talk more about the liability insurance and the background check and those sorts of things, as well as the referral confirmation, because I feel like it's too much to put in with module 3. It'll be a separate video, so I will email you once that is up on the course homepage. And always, if you have questions, reach out through the email in Tennessee campus in our course, or you can call the number as well, and reach out to me that way. So I want to be able to support you because I know it's a little different because you are responsible for securing your own placement. So just keep an eye out for that email. So let's go ahead and jump into Module 3. Just like Module 2, this module is going to be 2 weeks long. Okay, so you have 2 weeks to complete both lessons, and then you will have your assignment and quiz. So to give you an overview of Module 3, it's going to be talking about the likenesses and differences among children, specifically early childhood, who have exceptionalities or disabilities. Okay, so with this module, we're exploring different kinds of child development. So the topic's really going to be about maybe the causes of certain disability and risk factors that contribute to things like developmental delay. Right. We're also going to look at different kinds of resources that can support educators in early childhood, like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, specifically tailored to how we monitor the different milestones in child development and monitor that so we know kind of where we think they would be. And we define different disabilities. How is IDEA, Individual Disability Act, going to classify the different disabilities? So this would include Part B and C as well. So you'll be getting into the different parts. Now, that's all included in the first lesson. The second lesson is going to really broaden the discussion of the different disability categories, specifically putting them into three different categories: sensory, physical health, and then learning behavioral disability. So, this lesson 3.2 really aligns perfectly with the three chapters that you have to read in the textbook. And it's really going to help start you off in your first case study project, which is the disability um, PowerPoint or presentation, which is what we're going to talk about as well. So, with our assignment this week, you will be completing or creating a presentation for a child that you choose, which is a case study child, which I will go through. So, to complete Module 3, as an overview, here are things that you're going to be doing. You are going to be completing the two lessons, right, and going through all the links to do the required assigned reading chapters. You will submit a presentation on your choice of case study child and their disability. So, you're going to choose a case study child. You will keep that case study child the entire semester. So, remember, I told you at the beginning of the semester, and as you read in the um, getting started module, that you were going to do case study work on one child the entire semester. So this is going to be the first part of that project where you're going to put it together, a disability presentation. You're going to tell us all about your case study child's disability. And then you're also going to be taking the Module 3 quiz. So this is going to be what you will have to be responsible for and complete for Module 3. As always, I have the learning objectives for this module, as well as some focusing questions that can guide you for each lesson 3.1 and 3.2. Now, for your reading, in the Exceptional Child textbook, you're going to read chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then you are going to look at these two additional resources. Now, I know it's a lot of reading, the chapters are not too long, but anytime I give you resources like this, I want you to make sure that you save them for later. So, one of them is going to be the Tennessee Department of Education, specifically underneath special education evaluation and eligibility. This is going to go through those different disability categories that Tennessee recognizes, right? And it's going to define the different disabilities. This will go along with those categories that we're defining. Also, there's another one that is developed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is called Watch Me Celebrating Milestones and Sharing Concerns, because we talked about how it's important for you to monitor those different developmental milestones in early childhood. So, this is a great resource to go along with our lesson. Now we have our vocabulary. Now, getting into the lesson specifically, what are we looking at in lesson 3.1, our first lesson? So, we're going to talk about typical and atypical in terms of early childhood. What is your role as a early childhood educator with having students in your classroom who has disabilities? What are some causes and developmental disabilities? So we're looking at, could it be genetic? Is it something that is a risk, like risk factor? What are the causes of the different disabilities? And then we're going to get into where we start defining and classifying the different disabilities. Okay. And then you're going to look at another category that's additional, which is called the gifted and talented for young children. So that's going to be all of the content you're going to see inside of lesson 3.1. Now, in lesson 3.2, I mentioned earlier that this lesson is really going to go along with your chapters in your textbook um, from the exceptional child. So you're going to be looking at the different kinds of disabilities, specifically the three categories. So we have the sensory impairment, the physical disabilities, and then you have the learning and behavioral disabilities. So that will kind of go along seamlessly with that that lesson with the actual chapters. Now, if you scroll down a little bit more, you're going to see two additional boxes. Obviously, you're going to have your activities and assessments. So, what will you be doing for me to turn in or submit or take so you can get a grade? So, you have your Module 3 quiz there, and then you will be submitting your presentation, which we're calling the case study disability. And I will walk you through that in just a minute. Now, to help you, we said that the case study is going to require some research on your part. So, I did include some resources here, specifically about getting into database, what are research skills that you should have when you're completing a research project, such as this one. Anytime you have a case study child, you will have research that goes along with it. So, what are those skills necessary to complete this project this semester? And then anything about APA or citation help, we do use citations. So we're citing our work and our resources, and we're going to use the format APA. So there's a link to help you with that. Now, I did want to include another link for you. So if you go under case studies, there is a underneath the case studies to choose from, there is a presentation. Now, in our course, we have a research coach. She's a librarian. She's embedded into our course, and she created this presentation specifically for our Tennessee eCampus course around our project and any research we're doing in this class. So this is specifically tailored for our course. So this is an additional presentation to help support you through this case study project. Now, what I said earlier is to begin this project, we're starting it now in Module 3. You're going to choose one case study child. Okay, so first, if you click on underneath case studies in the table of contents, you're going to get an overview of our case study project, which you should have already read through. Also, our case study project rubric. But what I want you to pay close attention to is underneath the rubric for this project, you're going to see case studies. Your job is to choose one of the case study children. So you're going to choose one of the children here. So list one, and you were supposed to email me your choice. If you haven't already, go ahead and email me which child you choose. That child you will use the entire semester. Okay, so even starting it out now, whatever one you chose is who I want you to do a presentation on. Okay, so go ahead and get that. That's the first thing. Now, let's go back into our assignment and see what you're going to do with their case study child. So if you go back to Module 3, I want you to scroll down to where you see activities and assessments. underneath Module 3 quiz, I would like you to click on Module 3 case study disability PowerPoint. Now, you do not have to use PowerPoint if you prefer a different presentation um, mode, meaning if you want to use Google Slides, if you want to use Canva, whatever it is that you choose to create this presentation, I'm okay with it. I just put PowerPoint because most people are familiar and it's the most common one, but obviously you can use any kind of presentation, create any presentation using any format you'd like. So we'll see here, the main things that we're going to be looking at this uh, presentation is really to look at what your role is, right? So one of the first things that you will have to realize as an educator in early childhood is that you have to know about the child's disability or their condition. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a presentation based on that child's disability or condition. And the purpose of this is for you as an educator to be informed about their condition and how it's going to impact the child in this early childhood setting. So you're going to use that to make plans throughout the semester to get a good base understanding. Now it's going to help you with those future case study projects. Okay. So I listed here the information that should be included in your presentation. The first thing you're going to do is define what that condition or disability is. And under the special Tennessee State Department Special Education Eligibility, how do they define that disability category? Or you can even go into the early intervention system, the EIS, and see how they define this disability and under which category does it fall. Assessment. So I want you to talk about how is it determined that the child will qualify for an IFSP or an IEP? What are the causes or prevalence of this disability? What are some characteristics of this disability across its lifespan? That means from infancy into adulthood. Now, I really want you to make sure you focus on the child's age right now. So each case study is going to have a specific age where your child is at this point. That's what I want you to draw your focus in. And then we're going to get into those strategies and considerations for education, meaning we're looking at the environment as a whole. So, going back to UDL, Universal Design for Learning, we're going to look at instructional methods and strategies, right? So, what are some common modifications or accommodations? We're going to look at the environment, right? So, physical changes, schedule changes, access needed. Then we're going to look at that social emotional support. Okay, so what can be done to support that child socially inside the classroom based on their disability? And this is where that research is really going to come into play because these are things that I want you to research on about that disability. And then you're going to include some resources for that child, so and their family. So what kind of family support, what kind of support groups, organizations they can be involved with that's going to help them, and you're going to include those. And then you're going to list your sources. So you have to have a minimum of 4 sources included in your research, okay? And you will cite them with APA formatting. And again, we included all of these links in here to help support you. So make sure you're watching the presentation underneath your case studies module, and then make sure you're also looking at the ones included in the assignment instructions. Now, here are the formatting requirements for your presentation, regardless if you're using PowerPoint or not. The first slide should have the title of the presentation, which will be this, the case study disability, and then it has your name, okay? Since you're not doing it in a group because we're not in class, and this is an online course, you're going to just put your name. Make sure your fonts are easy to read. Use ones that are accessible. Be mindful of headings, italics, those sorts of things, okay? And be careful of your colors. You need to have at least 4 slides, right, that have images. So images need to connect to the content or relate to the content. One of those images need to be a chart or a graph, right? And they, again, need to be appropriate to the material in that slide. Also, I want you to make sure that you're mindful, even though this is not going to be a course like um, English composition or English lit, this is still college. I expect college level presentations and projects. So make sure that you look over and edit any mistakes. We're looking at grammar, capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. And then lastly, make sure it's accessible and it flows, right? This is a point on the rubric. I am going to be grading you on that. Um, there is something about accessibility in here for a link if you want to look at that. Now, in the case studies module, there is a rubric for the entire project. However, I put the rubric here specifically focusing on this first case study assignment, which is the presentation of the disability. It is worth 25 points. We broke it down into the different criteria or key elements that we're looking for. So your 3 levels would be does not meet expectations, meets expectations, and exceeds. So one thing I want to note on my rubrics, and you're going to see this even on the fieldwork rubric. Meet expectations means you have all these requirements. To exceed, I want this plus that, right? You're going a step above and beyond. So in order to look at the different criteria, you need to use this rubric. So go ahead and start out before you begin your project and research. Look at the rubric, look at the instruction to the assignment, and then before you submit it, I want you to look at it again, okay? Just as a checklist to make sure you're covering and hitting all the guidelines and expectations for this presentation. Right, so that's pretty much going to cover our module 3. Again, I will be uploading a separate video for our field work going over the rest of the project and also addressing any questions and concerns we had about the proof of liability coverage as well as the background check and the referral confirmation form. Okay, until next time, take care.